Hello and welcome to the second episode of our multi-part series on the history of student media at Ithaca College. For WICB, I'm Christian Maitre.
And I'm Michael Memis. This week we're focusing on VIC Radio, briefly known as WVIC in 1984 after a change from WICB AM. VIC Radio has gone through many changes throughout the years to get where it is today as Ithaca College's internet radio. Last week, if you listened to our episode on WICB, you heard from Toll Tompkins, who attended Ithaca College from 1969 to 1972. Here he is again, giving us some insight into what VIC Radio was like during his time at college radio.
Right. And that was, there was no internet back then, obviously. And WICB AM was on what was known as carrier current. So the signal was actually piped through the electrical lines that were in the dormitories and other buildings on campus.
During his time at the school, VIC was actually called WICB AM.
So if you had an AM radio, back when we had AM radios, you could turn on that AM radio and get WICB AM. And occasionally, depending on how close you were in a car to a building, you could also pick it up in a car. But once you drove off campus, it was gone because it wasn't really a broadcast signal. It was called carrier current, and it went through the currents and the electrical wires that were in the buildings. So that gave students a chance to kind of participate in a different format from what FM was doing.
Yeah, I'm Chris Wheatley, and I was manager of radio operations from, 1985 to 2013, and then I became manager of television and radio operations 2013 until 2017 when I took my retirement.
The 80s represented a period of change for the station, and Wheatley got to see this change firsthand.
Did you guys have the 50-hour marathon?
Yeah, in fact, that was probably like 85, 86. It started out, I think it was like a bowling tournament that was really more fun for the staff than anything, and I forget how we raised money, but then anyway, it became one of those annual things that got a whole lot of people involved, and we talked it up for students as hey, help us raise money, and you can say on your resume that you have sales experience.
This year is VIC's 35th 50-hour marathon. One thing Wheatley sought to expand was VIC's listenership.
We tried to get radiating FM cable installed in all the residence halls so that cable that was in the ceiling would give just enough signal that you could tune your FM radio to 105.9 and pick up this really cool station.
VIC Radio went through multiple name changes in the 80s. Here's Wheatley with a story on that.
I got a check in the mail, and it was to like General Sales Manager, WVIC, Lansing, Michigan, but somehow it ended up in my mailbox at Ithaca College. So I opened this envelope, and it's a check for $12,000. So I call up, I guess, the GM or the General Sales Manager in Lansing, Michigan, and told them what happened. And they said, well, isn't that interesting? Because we have our attorney with us right now, and I think he'd be very interested to hear that you're using our call letters. And so that's sort of how that went. I said, well, I guess we're going to drop the W then. They said, I think that's a good idea before we send a cease and desist and all that. So dodged a bullet. Yeah, that was, that must have been like 86 or 87.
So when I got to Ithaca in the fall of 84, VIC was top 40.
That's Kevin Goins, who in the late 80s served as one of the program directors for VIC, and later its production manager. Here he is talking about a format change he witnessed for VIC Radio.
So we flipped the format to album-oriented rock, and that's when we became the Rock of Ithaca. So we did what was popular in the album rock charts, which of course were like some couple of people I mentioned before, Bruce Springsteen, who was in the news, but then you had John Parr, who had the hit record with St. Elmo's Fire. You had a whole bunch of folks who were putting out records that are in the AOR category. Pat Benatar was one of them, as I mentioned earlier. And Tom Chartrand and Bobby Carlton, or Roberta Carlton, who was the station manager, they incorporated a format that I called the Crossroads, which is basically you had one road of folks who liked a lot of the newer rock and roll music, right? But then you had a road of folks who loved the classic stuff, the roots of rock, we really emphasized classic rock, because classic rock was starting to emerge as a very powerful sub format.
And then in 1997, we became one of the first colleges to have an internet-only radio station.
That was Chris Mascarelli, VIC's current station manager. We believe VIC switched to a indie alternative format in either the late 90s or early 2000s, based on our conversations with multiple sources. I want to end this piece with a statement from Goins about college radio at IC that carries on to today.
We had some serious fun. We did a lot. We did things for the community. We did fundraisers. We did bowl-a-thons. We did dance-a-thons. We weren't just a bunch of kids who just sat there with a stack of records. We wanted to really do something that would help benefit the community.
For WICB News, I'm Christian Maitre.
And I'm Michael Memis.